Welcome to another another.
An edition of Cambridge Inside Out. It is another one. But.
Right. Her name is Judy Nathans.
Yay.
And my name's Robert Winters. And we have a guest today.
Special guest.
That's
Will
right.
MacArthur, right? Did I pronounce it right?
Yep.
Okay.
And Will is a graduating senior.
Yes, in 3 weeks.
How do you know you're graduating? You got those grades all yet? You're all
He's
squared
already
away?
into school, right?
I mean, I guess I'll find out in 3 weeks or so.
Right.
I remember doing the swim test freshman year. I think that's one of the main requirements.
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, they require that MIT students. Their first year, when they first arrive here in September, they say, "Did you do your swim test? Did you do your
Right,
swim
yeah,
test?"
that's
It's a big
interesting.
deal. Yeah, this is definitely that time of year. I just gave a final exam at MIT. I was grading exams for my other class, so it's that time of year.
Yes,
definitely.
it is. You can see it in the traffic.
Yeah. Now, one thing I just want to say, I don't want to embarrass you too much or put you on the spot here, but I just, after we communicated via email over one issue, then I went over to the City Scholarship Awards yesterday
Right.
at City Hall, which I do prior to the City Council meeting, and I saw there you were.
Yeah.
So-
Very nice.
So you were one of the recipients of the City Scholarship.
Can I ask, do you apply for that, or how do you get that?
So there's a great scholarship clearinghouse on the CRLS website.
Oh,
and so you
okay.
can apply for
So
all these
I see.
scholarships at once. I think for
I
the
see.
city one, it was
Yeah.
I forget the number that applied, but 80 people got them, which is great.
Yes,
And they were
I know. I contribute to it,
$2,500.
so I know it's $2,500. Wow,
Yeah.
it's gone up.
Cool.
Used to be 2,000.
That's one of the little secrets. There's
Yeah.
actually a lot of scholarship money from many sources all around the country that people often don't know that they can tap into.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it's unavailable.
So do you think the high school does a good job at letting
Yeah.
students know that
Mm-hmm.
stuff? That they have a good database and.
Miss DiClemente, the dean of Learning Community R, is in charge of it, and she sends out emails and puts up flyers.
Did she used to be
The volleyball coach?
She was in the physical ed department, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, I like her. She's been around
she's
a
good.
while,
She's
yeah.
One thing I always
my
find.
dean.
Oh great,
All right.
okay.
One thing I always find funny is that when you're in high school or elementary school, all your teachers are, Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so or whatever. And it's funny, you become an adult. I know people
Yeah.
who are like 40, 50 some years old,
Yeah.
and when they're referring to, somebody,
Yeah.
you still Mrs. Mrs. Smith or Mrs. Clemente or Mr. Barkin, right?
Unless you went to Cambridgeport School, and then you were called
then
by
everything
first
was like
name.
first
Well, it
names,
depends. It was interesting. African American teachers, it was Miss or Miss.
That's how it was.
It was just went by what people preferred.
Well, that's how it should be. When I taught at
Right.
Wellesley College, I used to, I would say, I was in my 20s when I was first working there, and I would say, "Oh, just call me Robert." And I had one student who very
Oh.
rigidly said, "No, it's Mr. Winters,"
Yeah.
and because that was what she was more comfortable
Exactly.
saying.
That's
so,
true. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. Now, we actually first were in touch because you sent me an email about an interesting. You also are you write for the Register Forum.
Yes.
That's
School
the school
newspaper.
paper.
Excellent school newspaper.
At my high school, it was just the Forum.
And then, so did you go to the Cambridge High in Latin?
No. Actually, I have
from
to.
the Bronx, or no?
I have to come clean.
Yeah, right.
I'm
New
actually
York.
a New Yorker.
Yeah.
All right, I'm an adopted Cantabrigian.
Yeah, me too.
I've been accepted as one of their
Right.
own, right?
But my daughter went to all the schools.
All the schools
Because
there.
I remember hearing that before the two schools combined, there was the Latin Forum and the
Oh yeah.
the Ringe Register.
Oh,
And then-
so that's where the name came from?
That like the
makes sense.
schools, because when it was
Ringe
just
School,
well,
yeah.
it was Ringe, and then it was Cambridge Latin.
Right, and the Ringe School is actually
Yeah.
the descendant of the original manual training school, which was
Right,
one of the
okay.
Ringe gifts.
Yeah.
Frederick Ringe.
Hastings Ringe.
Frederick Ringe,
Good, you know
that's right.
this is good.
That was his history.
Yeah, and that's the one of the three Ringe gifts that is the building is no longer there. The
Uh-huh.
other one was the library in City Hall.
Yeah.
So so we're descendants, I suppose, in a way. But so you are a writer with, or just like staff reporter going on the beat, or are you like
Correspondent.
the big cheese, or what?
Definitely not the big cheese. I mostly cover Ringe sports, and whenever something happens in like local politics, like I did some candidate profiles for the candidates for school committee
nice.
and for student government last year.
Oh, that's
All right.
great.
But most of the time I cover range sports and some arts and entertainment
Which
stuff.
sports? All of them, or
Pretty much all of them.
you covered the basketball team?
Yeah, I wrote an article about our phenomenal state championship
I
basketball
went to
team.
the last 3 games.
You went out to Springfield?
I went to Springfield, I went to the Garden, and I went out to the one where they beat. It was out in the boondocks. Which one was that? I don't
They
know.
went to Lowell, I think.
Well,
Or
they played Lowell, but they had to play out
Yeah.
in some dark place.
Yeah.
But I went with my daughter, who did take a lot of photographs. She contributed them to the team, but
Yeah.
because she had gone there, obviously. Yeah, I loved it. It
Yeah.
was great. So
Yeah, I didn't go to any of the games, but I was.
you heard a lot of. We showed all of the photos. Remember on the
I mean, I didn't
show?
have access
Yeah.
to like watch it live or anything, so it was like following tweets,
Actually,
updating.
Mark McGovern was live
I
tweeting
was
for a while.
believe me, Mark McGovern was like my primary source.
But it was streamed live. The last 2, I think, were. You could see it live.
I guess
yeah.
I'm just an internet ignorant.
Whatever.
I had
Yeah.
a hard time.
No,
finding
Mark
it.
was at both. Yeah, and Jeffrey. What's his name? You know, the superintendent.
Jeff Young,
He was there.
who I ran into at Mayfair.
Steve Buckley was at
Yeah.
the one at the Garden. I didn't see him at the Springfield one. But.
So it was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, I was sort of like living vicariously through them, feeling
Yes.
like school spirit.
Yeah,
and
it was great.
all the classic
It was
stuff.
really.
I mean, yeah, it was exciting to cover. It was just great talking to people about like how they came to care about the basketball team. I talked to some people who had gone to every game
Yeah.
and were kind of leading
Oh.
the cheering sections
Wow.
of the
Yeah.
final.
Yeah.
And or interviewing someone who's just really excited that he finally got to do the give me a C and spell out Cambridge.
Oh yeah.
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 Yeah, and actually in the political class of Cambridge, there are certain political figures like Mark McGovern, Freddie Fantini,
Oh yeah, he was at the game too.
former councillor and former
Yeah.
Mayor Anthony Galuccio, who's ever present.
Oh, he was there, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
He goes to a lot of hockey games too.
yeah,
He goes to the football game. He goes to
Yeah,
He's a
yeah.
coach too, so I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so you sort of you
Yeah.
you definitely get to see which of
Right.
the councillors and school committee
Sure.
people really bleed Cambridge.
Yeah.
You know?
I haven't seen any of them at our track meets.
Oh, well, okay. So you do track. You said you were engaged in 3 sports.
Yeah.
Track was.
In the fall, I play soccer. In the winter, I run indoor track.
Okay.
So I run the 600-meter dash.
Yeah.
And in the spring, I run the 400-meter hurdles.
Because I was going to ask if you did crew, because you certainly have the height. Never interested in that?
No, I don't have the height compared to our crew
really?
team.
I know, they're pretty phenomenal, and you have to write about them. But you want to get back to what you were talking about?
Well, I mean,
PR, that's pretty
I have to tell you, it's because we have a live CRLS student here.
Yeah,
you know,
so
like
it's good to hear about
believe me, I
what's
could go,
going on, right,
I could
yeah.
go in 1,000 directions because, I teach for livings. And I've had CRLS students actually
Yeah.
as students in my Harvard Extension School classes, the multivariable calculus linear algebra courses.
Right.
So occasionally I, strike up a conversation with some of them. But, relatively speaking, I don't get to have nearly as much contact, so it's always sort of interesting. But our first contact was because it was you were inquiring about. Well, I guess let's get it the chronology right.
Right.
So there was there's student government, like in most schools have student government, and they use certain kinds of election systems or methods. I imagine typically people just default to like plurality elections, and whoever gets the most votes wins, or something.
So
Is it for all grades, or each grade has their own election?
the current system,
Yeah.
or the system that they used last
Yeah.
year at least, they're trying to change it, was so within each grade, so the freshmen electing sophomore reps for the next year,
Oh, I see.
there
Okay.
are 4 seats and each voter gets 4 votes.
So representatives.
Yes. So as you could imagine, if 50.1%
Yeah.
of people want to elect a certain slate, they get all 4 seats.
Right.
Oh, I see what you're
And-
saying. Okay.
Those kinds of at-large systems where you vote for up to 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
And depending on how many candidates, there are places like I think it was either in Holyoke or Springfield some years ago where it was a court order to actually cease and desist using it
Because it wasn't fair.
It ends
Yeah.
up giving very non-representative elected
point.
bodies.
Right.
Of course, that's how they elect the at-large councilors for the Boston City Council. Cambridge is sort of exceptional in that we use proportional representation for it.
Only city in the country.
No.
well,
Santa
actually-
Monica?
the thing is what's happening largely in a kind of a twisted way. I was sort of horrified at what happened at the presidential election year 2000.
Oh.
That a few hundred votes in Florida based on bad ballot design and other problems. Let's not get into all of it, right?
Yeah, right.
But
Please.
the worst horror show of like bad election mechanics ends up leading to the decision of who's going to be president of the United States.
Yeah.
And so anyway, a lot of people reacted to that. There was the Help America Vote Act happened subsequently. So there were certain things happened, but in a paradoxical way, it actually led to a rather positive effect, which is that various places around the United States actually started considering alternate voting methods. Previous to that, people would say, "Oh, that's those crazy mathematicians. They're trying to sell us on this
Or
weird
it's
system."
popular in Europe too, right?
Well, the thing is most democracies in the world are parliamentary type systems, and they use some form of proportional representation to do their elections. So we're very exceptional in this country in using plurality elections. But it's funny, people are it's sort of like the American way, like, well, they got the most votes, so therefore they win, and they don't even think about the subtleties about vote splitting. So anyway, was there some dissatisfaction that led to? Oh, let's first say what has happened here.
Right, the right. So you contacted Robert, knowing that he was sort of the father of it here.
I'm not the father of it.
Well, you're not the
Cambridge
father
has
of
been
it.
using it since 1941.
True. Well, you are the purveyor of it. I don't know.
I
The
think
expert.
I think of myself as more of the custodian.
The custodian. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So.
in terms of chronology, so
Yeah.
I was a TA for a U.S. History 1 class in the fall.
Uh-huh.
All right.
That's also a great program at Ringe.
Oh, that you can be a teaching
Yeah.
assistant? Mm-hmm. Wow.
If you have a teacher who approves you to do that.
Nice.
Great.
And,
Yeah.
and I was giving a lesson on various voting systems for various offices
Oh,
in the
wow.
U.S. So because some people said they didn't understand the Electoral College, and so
Right. Great.
I was
So you
teaching
did
on
it.
that. And then almost as a joke, I went down to CRLS student government,
Huh.
and the sophomores in the class were just like, "Wait, what? Like that's how we elect our
Huh.
people?" And they were really not happy about that. So
Interesting.
and then I was thinking like, well, it is a multi-member board. Like, there's no reason that proportional representation wouldn't work.
Sure.
So I talked to some of my friends who are in student government, and they had a forum, like a public forum after school.
Right.
And
How many people went to it?
I think it was like somewhere between like 20 and 30.
That's a good represent. Yeah.
And so they discussed it, and they decided to explore the possibility of moving forward with it. And then it came to a vote, and it passed 17-5. And now
Wow.
they're trying to work out some logistical difficulties with it, and that's why I
Yeah.
emailed you, because they asked me.
Yeah. I absolutely agree to help out. Actually, the software you can do it by hand if the numbers
I
are
was gonna say,
relatively
we used
small.
to do it by hand before, right?
I have to say that as a bottom line. If you're doing a relatively small scale ballot,
Which it would be in a high
elections,
school, right? I mean,
potentially. But the thing is that if you're doing it with a relatively small scale with ranked choice ballots, you can often just do it by hand as quickly or as easily as anything. You don't get the fancy reports. It's kind of nice to get the fancy reports and the statistics and all of that kind of automatically generated.
I like looking through those on your website.
Exactly. So we can do things like that.
You can go back to all the
Yeah,
elections.
but it's relatively easy to use. One of the things I've been threatening to do one day, if I can figure out how to make these gadgets work, is actually bring in a laptop with Cambridge's election software loaded onto it. Show people this is what ballot data files look like. This is what a configuration file looks like. Here we do it now. Let's watch how long it takes to count 17,000 ballots, and people will say they'll go click done. It's that fast. And then just generate the report. So I thought it would be kind of a good thing just to show. In fact, I've actually offered to show election commissioners who don't actually run the software how to do that. Some of the elected officials, hey, come over to my house. I'll just walk you through it. It's actually not that hard in the end. So,
but the students would have to be educated about it before they tried to vote that way, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean,
What's the plan?
purely in terms of voting your own interest, all you really need to know is rank your choices, because
That's it.
it's pretty resistant to like tactical voting.
that's right.
But just don't put X's, because some
Yeah.
people do put X's next to four names. and they don't rank.
You know,
they have to be told to do one.
If the
Right.
input device is something like a Google Doc or something, or survey instruments, the thing, if you do it like with an online tool,
I think that's.
So you
what
want to
they've
do it
done in the
online?
past.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm not figuring out any of the
Oh, so they
logistics
voted
too, 'cause I'm just
online in
trying
the
to cover
past
it.
too? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't know that.
But you can make it so that you can't vote X's. You have to rank.
Right, okay,
And
that's
you
true.
know, so you know, that's an easily addressable thing. I mean, we actually do that in Cambridge, in that if somebody puts in a ballot that does multiple rankings for
Oh, it spits it out.
it gives the same ranking to two different candidates, it rejects it.
Right.
And then the voter is then, you know, informed, said, excuse
Right
me,
away
Mr.
it'll
Smith,
reject
but-
it?
Yes,
Huh.
and it says this, you voted incorrectly. The poll worker is not supposed to look at the ballot.
I
So
see.
the poll worker can only say what the readout was, says, apparently, according to the machine, you have voted
Ah.
for, giving the same ranking to more than one
I wonder
candidate.
how often that happens.
Not that much, but it
Yeah.
does happen. And then if the voter says, well, damn it, that's how I want to vote.
Okay,
then
sir.
there's an override,
Yeah.
and then you can say, oh, fine, okay, as long as you say so, and then it will accept it.
And he doesn't know,
And then
or
it
she,
doesn't
that it'll
count.
not.
Well,
be
that
not-
ranking, the ballot will still count if there are any live, non-ambiguous
Ah,
rankings.
like a one
That's
and
it.
an X's or
Right.
something.
So it only wouldn't count for number one if they ranked
Which
two
is
number one.
the number, that's the
Yeah.
one you really care about.
Yeah.
Right,
So
right.
it'll simply bypass the thing the voter really cared about and
Right.
and default to the
Huh.
unambiguous second choice that they didn't care as much about. I don't know if that's such a great system, but hey, you know, there are other ways of doing it where you can take your top number one vote and basically split it and give 0.5 to each. That's actually the default method. The default method that comes with the software. We actually have to impose Cambridge rules in order to override some of the defaults.
I remember reading about all the different fractional transfer methods
Oh,
during the
that's-
recount
that's
2015,
dizzying. That's very
Oh.
and then I
dizzying.
just gave up.
Yeah, really.
Trying to understand it.
You know, for a lot of reasons, using a fractional transfer method for PR elections, like we do in Cambridge, would be better. However, I don't. You know what I always think about is like how are the voters or looking at the election results going to feel when they see that so and so edged out somebody out by 0.785
Yeah.
votes. You know, or it's actually worked out to like 10 decimal places.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes just using whole numbers is something that's a lot more palatable
Yeah.
for an average person.
And it's easier to explain using like how I explained it to my sophomore students was just imagine a physical ballot, and then you can just move it around between the different.
Yeah, the way I always say, imagine a ballot, think of it as a person, and you sort of put everybody into a gymnasium, and you say, okay, everybody gather around this wall, you know, this sign on the wall that says candidate A, candidate B, and then you just look and say, oh, too many of you over there. So I need to take some of you over here and go to your next choice, and actually just think it like as it was just people actually caucusing and making a decision that way.
Bad word. No.
Okay, Israel. Oops, excuse me.
Yeah, caucuses, I guess, boy, talk about heavy-handedness. I mean,
Yeah.
talk about not knowing, you know, voter privacy. There is no privacy in caucuses. You are literally out there
Just-
declaring sides.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
can get very heavy, especially if you,
I'm sure.
if you neighbors that have
You
to
get some
live together.
intimidating
And,
presence. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Anyway.
So we'll, you know, be interesting. See, so they actually voted to do it, so we'll sort of help make it happen, you know?
Yeah.
And hopefully it'll go off without a hitch, otherwise people will be voting to change back right away.
It's every year there's elections because the grades
Yes.
change? Okay. So
Yeah.
it's representatives, and is there any other elected office?
So the sophomores and juniors. So at the end of every year,
Yeah.
the freshmen or rising sophomores, I guess,
Okay.
after the seniors leave, vote for the next year's sophomore reps,
Yeah.
and the sophomores vote for next year's junior reps, and then the juniors vote for senior class president, senior class vice
Okay,
president.
so the seniors are the ones that get those positions. That makes sense.
Well, then there's also, in addition to that,
Yeah.
there's an at-large elected student body president, student body vice president, treasurer, secretary, and then at the school committee meetings, if you've seen the two CRLS students,
That's right,
they're
yeah.
elected at large by the whole student body, and that's 2 seats, 2 votes,
Oh.
I think Marjorie Decker was one of those once
Yeah.
upon a time.
and the vice mayor.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And Emma Stickgold, I think she was also a student rep
Huh.
for the school committee. So I've done a few of them over the years, yeah. Yeah. So actually, what does student government do in a, you know, in a
What
high
is your
school?
powers? What are your powers?
I haven't
advisory powers? Or?
I haven't been to all of their meetings. I've been to a lot of the. They've done a great job planning a bunch of events. All the dances.
So you've
they've
never run
planned.
for office of any sort?
I ran for sophomore rep.
Okay.
My freshman year.
All right, and you.
I did not win.
You did not win.
No.
Well, that's, I guess, a whole other thing. How do you get votes in high school? Is it baking cookies, or I'm thinking of, what was that?
They actually
Movie
banned
election?
baking cookies.
Really?
Yeah.
It was bribery.
Bribery, sure.
I
Yeah.
don't know. As a voter, I was fine with them baking cookies, but I guess
Yeah,
So,
right.
so you accept political patronage, sir.
from a democratic standpoint.
So I guess,
it's
is it all
problematic.
now social media determined now? I mean, years ago it was signs. People still do signs, or do they
People make plans,
basically
people make candidate pages.
candidate pages?
And-
So Facebook,
Yeah.
Twitter, all that stuff.
I like to think people read the candidate forums in the newspaper.
Okay.
And we're having our
Yeah.
first ever in the Fitzgerald Theater on June 6th during
Oh.
periods 3 and 4.
Yeah.
We're having a candidate forum for candidates for the at-large offices where people can ask them about
That would be
various
interesting to go to.
issues.
June 6th.
I know. Well, we're not.
Periods 3
we're
and
not,
4. What time is
We're
periods
not students.
3
Are we
and 4?
permitted?
It would be 11:42 until 2:30.
Oh, wow.
And it would probably be 2 sections because
Okay.
how assemblies generally work is just one
Sure.
teacher opts 2.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
We when I was in high school, I actually was against my will. I was like forced to
Into
be
a
like a
vote?
candidate for the student body president.
Did you
I
get
still
it?
I should put it up on the TV here one
Yeah.
time. We have like a flyer drawn up for
That was a
it.
big high school too, I bet.
Yeah, it was like 4,000 students at the high
Oh
school.
my goodness.
And I got edged out. But we didn't have candidate forums like, question and answer of the big issues of the
Yeah.
day. We would put down sort of like a show. It was like theatrical.
Oh, boy.
I wore a big top hat like
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln,
Oh, nice.
splitting logs, and then I got left home to go off to be a
That's
hero. It was very
That
very
sounds
funny.
that
yeah.
sounds enjoyable, actually.
Yeah.
Wish
Well,
they-
for some, it's actually pretty good training for future citizenship,
speaking and-
public speaking,
yeah, right.
and maybe even going into government like Marjorie or people like that as well. So,
So this is the first ever candidate that's going to be where students are going to go. That's interesting.
well,
Or
that's
at
pretty
least the
cool.
first one. We couldn't find any mention of it in the newspaper archives at the library. But
Yeah.
it's possible there was one in like the
Yeah.
1890s or something. Who
Right.
knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, we'll continue this sort of in the next half hour here, but whenever I get like a live student, I always want to talk about.
Versus
Don't go away. I got you here now.
catatonic student.
Right.
or-
Because I teach mathematics,
Right.
and as I said earlier,
Yeah.
I sometimes have CRLS students who will be in my extension school classes, and occasionally I strike up a conversation with them about these things here. And I know you were saying just before we went on the air that you were at Graham Parks. Do we still call it Graham Parks? Has that been
yes.
changed?
No,
K through
it's-
5 is Graham Park.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
still Graham Parks, but it's up at the old Peabody School.
At the old Peabody,
Yeah.
right? Everything is the Graham Parks at the Peabody.
And the Peabody
Longfellow
is now
down
at the old
Kennedy, and-
Fitzgerald. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but one of the things when the school committee was having a debate, if you won't even call it a debate, it was on mathematics instructions. I think it was when they were doing the innovation agenda conversation. And I guess you were probably right on the cusp of the grammar school and going to the high school when a lot of the debate was going on, right?
Yeah. I think when the vote happened, I was in 7th grade, and then I got to finish my 8th grade year at Graham Parks, and I was in 9th grade when the first
switch-
year of the upper schools happened.
Well, one of the things that was debated at the time was, part of the argument for doing the middle school or upper school. I'm going to get some of the language wrong here, but
It's called upper schools.
it was they were saying that the upper grades in the K through 8 programs were really they evaporated to the point where there were very few students in some of the grades.
Seventh and 8th grade level.
So if you wanted to actually put together a music program or something like that, there just wasn't enough people to actually do it in any rational way. So by joining multiple schools into a common upper school, it was going to allow for the possibility of some of these things. But then there was a subsequent debate. It was about things like mathematics instructions. and then the kind of the word came down.
Oh, about
you know,
levels maybe,
no,
or?
I always get screwed up.
Yeah.
No leveled classes.
Right, right.
Was the word, and I always say
That didn't make
they wanna-
sense.
well, I mean, I get it, and this is something we could talk over months on, but I think most people, mathematics instructors alike, would argue that if a kid's in the first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to split kids into
Right.
levels. But by the time
Yes,
you're
it
graduating
needs to be,
high school, and
sure.
certainly when you're at college, everybody's getting leveled.
Right.
So, as we say in calculus, the mean value theorem says there's got to be a point where, no, actually it's the intermediate value theorem. My God, I erred. Right, but it's at some point there is a crossover where it starts to become a rational choice to do that.
Yeah.
But they weren't allowing it. They just would not permit it.
And where is that now?
Well, I think it was for the middle schools. It was supposed to have heterogeneous groupings.
I know Vaseline has
Differentiated
leveling for
instruction.
math.
They do.
Yeah.
See, that was actually a concession. What happened, I think, in the first year, it was supposed to not happen. And I remember testifying, saying, look, if the teachers at the school really feel that it's necessary to do it, you have to at least trust them.
Right.
And I think there was sort of a modification of the system after the first
That's
year.
interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, I always found as a teacher, if you asked me to teach a classroom where there were the people's ability levels were too great a difference, there does come a point where it's almost an impossible request.
I mean, I think it depends a tremendous amount on the subject.
Yes.
Very much. Mathematics
Yeah.
is very different than some others.
Very different than like history, but even so, my daughter went to the school, and we're running out of this, when they were doing all their experimentation, no honor programs, no this, 2 years with the same teacher in the same class, like in history, and every year it changed until now you have honors classes back, right? When
Yeah.
you started, weren't there honors classes?
Yeah, the 4 years I've gone to Ringe, there's
Yeah.
been
well, that-
tracking.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a grant.
and that's
Yeah.
brought in, for good or worse, a lot of other students, a lot
Right.
of kids that went to private schools.
And there's
that
definitely a
come to the high
debate at the
school.
middle school level. Anyway,
Yes.
we're down to our last
Okay.
10 seconds, so we're going to take a few seconds to take a breath, and then we'll be back in another few minutes with Cambridge Inside Out.